I would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
And welcome, everybody, to the Cultworthy Cinema Podcast. It's a very special Father's Day episode, and to celebrate that occasion, I brought on two of my favorite podcasting dads, who I've been doing this with now for like the last 3 years. We've been a part of this collective, this brain trust, helping each other out, and it's like my favorite little mix of dads right now, because I feel like we each picked 3 cinema dads on very different levels, and it's going to make a great conversation. And we are having a dad battle. We're going to pair these dads up against each other and see what we think and what our audience and listeners thinks, because we did a poll of who is their favorite cinema dad. But before we get into that, please welcome Josh Wilson of Super Familiar with the Wilsons podcast. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing very well, my friend. How are you?
Well, I'm great. I'm better now. I got these sexy dads on camera. And speaking of sexy dads, Justin Henson, nice to see you.
It's always a pleasure. I get you twice this week, and it's
right.
always exciting. I love the Father's Day special. It's always a pleasure to visit.
Everyone, that voice that you just heard and that face you just saw, Justin Henson of the Movie Wire, who is also my co-host on Back to the Balcony, our Siskel and Ebert retrospective. And those are our shows, but Wilson, since he hasn't been on in a couple of years, I think we did our Cultworthy potluck and you brought Red Dwarf to the show. That was a fun conversation. Wilson, you've got 2 more shows, I think, since then. So how about you tell the audience about those?
Oh, I'm always stepping in and out of shows. So right now, I've just got one other podcast going. I've got something called Aging Gayfully, and it's really aimed towards... it's aimed towards everyone who is interested in learning and finding out about both people who are on the queer side of lifestyle, but also people who are seniors. So my co-host is a senior gentleman, and we talk about all sorts of different issues, and I find it to be just loads of fun, this podcast. And so that's the only one I'm doing right now.
Unscrewed Up on pause, or is that just kind of faded away?
It's on indefinite pause, because that took a lot of brain power. And let me tell you something, dude. The world has gotten 120 times more stressful. And like, who has time? Who has the emotional and mental capacity to come up with shit for 3 different podcasts every single week? Maybe you, not me.
Wilson Industries, they've got their hands full trying to fix the things that you've already tried to unscrew up.
Exactly so. So we'll see. I don't know.
I mean, I get it, man. I'm in the same boat. You know, the fact that Justin and I do our weekly show, Back to the Balcony, which is that Siskel and Ebert retrospective. I feel like every month I come up with an idea that I think would make a great show, but then I realize it just would make a better segment or a better series. Like, I don't have to create a podcast for every single idea that pops into my head. Like, I'm ambitious, but I'm also trying not to be that self-flagellating, right? I don't want to just keep beating myself up over, oh my gosh, this one didn't get as many listens and I have to edit this show too. No. I think 2 to 3 is the magic number.
Oh, I'm just working on 2 right now, and we'll leave the flagellating to someone else.
Awesome. Okay, so let's start this episode off with a discussion of our favorite cinema dads. And I have to stress the point, this doesn't mean the best cinema dad. I'm sure there are better cinema dads out there, especially with some of the ones that people in this group picked, but we're just going with our favorites. So we'll go ahead and start off with our guests. Josh Wilson, who did you suggest as your favorite cinema dad?
So are we saying favorite or best? Because I went with what I feel is the best cinema dad.
You would. I mean, okay, if favorite is your best, go ahead and put it that way. The one I picked, I think, is my favorite because we'll get to my explanation in a second, but I think there are better cinema dads out there. That doesn't mean I actually like them. You know, there's actually some cinema dads that I absolutely despise, but they are pretty good dads. So I went with favorite. What did you do, Justin?
Mine's the best and my favorite. I'll just call it what it is. So,
Okay, so I just did favorite then.
So you asked me which one I picked. I picked Darth Vader, whose name actually comes from Dark Father. So I understand that when George Lucas was naming him, that there's some language, and I don't remember what it.
I think it's
what
German.
It was. Is it German? It might very well be, and that means Dark Father. So there you go. But his story of love and loss and redemption, to me, all of these things together have formed him into this amazing, might I say, father.
I mean, it took us 6 movies to get there, but I see it.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if you want me to go into like the different things now, or if we just want to introduce the dads now. What do you want?
I say we can probably discuss some of the intricacies of it during the conversation. We have 13 categories to go through, and then we could probably do like a final statement, a closing statement, if you will, about those. But that's a good introduction up to like why you
Yes,
picked
Your
Darth
Honor.
Vader. Henson, what about you?
So I picked, played by the great and late Robin Williams, Armand Goldman. The D is silent from the Birdcage. So this father is one that I think we all kind of wanted. It's the one that just, to me, just is super relatable, not necessarily on owning a nightclub, not necessarily the persona, but just that dad that really listens and tries to be abrupt. He tries to speak his mind, but at the end of the day, what pours through his vocals is his love of his kid, is the wanting to do great things and wanting to do the right thing in regards to raising his child. We have this chaotic environment, and he is the absolute rock of this family with some flaws, but to me, he is the definition of the dad that just we want to love and we want to reach through that screen and just give a big hug to.
I got to say that that's one of my favorite movies, The Birdcage. One of my
100%.
It's one of those movies that I would love to be able to see for the first time again.
Yeah, agreed. That's one of my favorite movies too. And I was really struggling between my pick and Armand Goldman. I think the main reason why I didn't pick Armand Goldman is because I've said before on the show that Furious Styles, which is my pick from BOYZ in the Hood, played by Lawrence Fishburne, I've already said on the show twice that I think he's my favorite cinema dad. So I just kind of had to stay in that camp. I couldn't like flip flop. So when Henson brought Armand Goldman to the floor, I'm like, absolutely, and perfect guy to bring it because there is a lot of positive that I'd have to say about it too. But also, like, there are flaws to all of our dads, like Henson said, and of course, like Wilson said with his. We will discuss those as we go through the categories. Now, before we even jump into this, were there any dads on your short lists that you were thinking about maybe bringing to the table apart from the ones that we picked?
Definitely. John McClane was on my list.
Henson?
Yeah. You know what? I kept going back. I think I was the last one to bring one to the table. You know, from Father of the Bride, Steve Martin, that was a good one too. And I think you and me, Antonio, have had that conversation, the heartbreak dad moment at the end where he doesn't get to see his daughter off and enjoy the wedding and he just wanted to say goodbye. There are a lot that just went through my mind when it comes to it, and each one showed a struggle. But to me, if I had to pick my second pick, it would have been Banks from Father of the Bride.
Yeah, and Armand Goldman was like second on mine. And then it's a weird one, but I kind of really like Ben Stiller's character in Royal Tenenbaums because I'm a single dad of a son, and I can understand the overprotectiveness of him and those two kids and how that kind of can seem toxic. But at the same time, as he's able to learn how to be a better dad by letting them have a little bit of fun and letting his guard down and being willing to learn how to not be so aggressive in their protection and like how streamlined he's raising these kids because of the passing of their mom. And it's a father-son moment in that movie that makes me tear up, and that will always get me. Like, that'll always put you on my list. If there can be a father-son moment that makes me tear up, I'm like, oh, you're going on the list. So that was on my list too.
A couple of others I was thinking of was Marlin from Finding Nemo,
Mm-hmm.
and Indiana Jones's father. But to be fair, that's, I think, only because it's played by Sean Connery. We really don't see enough of him. But I'm pretty comfortable with Darth Vader. We'll go with that.
I had to just do an honorable mention of probably not a common movie that everybody's seen, but Tony Danza, She's Out of Control, just because of the relatability factor of having a daughter. I can totally relate.
Yeah, okay, I can definitely see that one. That one, oh my, I haven't seen that in a long time. We have to throw that on the Back to the Balcony show. That's not on our list yet, so one of us needs to throw that on there. It'll be there for sure. Okay, so we've kind of given our feelings on why we picked the dads that we picked. But for the last 2 weeks, I have 13 categories I've been posting every day on Instagram, a poll of just different dad categories, dadagories, if you will, to see what people think about our choices. So we're going to go into these one by one, kind of discuss our thoughts and where we think the listeners and the viewers came in. So number 1, we put most courageous movie dad. And the poll said Furious Styles at 25%, Darth Vader at 38%, and tied with Armand Goldman at 38% for most courageous movie dad. Wilson, you have the floor on your courageous movie dad discussion.
So as we look at Darth Vader, I think at his heart, wrong decisions notwithstanding, he was a family guy, and everything was about his family. He chose the dark side because he wanted to protect his wife and unborn children. In Empire Strikes Back, we see the moment where he says, "Luke, I am your father," and does a very surprising thing. He invites his son to join him in the family business. And then in the third movie, we see Darth Vader come full circle, and he sacrifices himself for his son. I mean, he gives his life for his son, and turns his back on his boss, probably screws up his retirement plan and all this. And, how much more courageous can you be than to give your life for your kid? Boom, done.
I have a question, though. I've always been a little bit concerned about one scene, one line of dialogue in particular in Empire Strikes Back. When Luke is hanging from that, whatever that is, weather antenna, hand freshly cut off, and Vader says, "Together we can overthrow the Emperor." Do you really think that he meant that, or do you think he was just trying to use that as a line to kind of get Luke to come over a little bit quicker? Because I felt like he was loyal to the Emperor to like a fault, but at the same time, I always wondered, like, was he really serious about him and Luke overthrowing the Emperor together like that? Or was that just a line to say, hey, I don't like the Emperor either, buddy. Let's take him on together. What do you think?
There's always just two. There's always two.
Oh, that's right. You got to know the Jedi lore.
If you'll remember that. So there was no room for Emperor, Vader, and Luke, right?
Right.
So, and listen, the reality is that we see in the prequels, he gets things chopped off of him, and he's put in this suit, and he's in terrible pain, and he's got to be pissed at the Emperor from that point on, So I think he's always been looking for a chance to knock the dude off.
He played the long game. I agree with you. And that's why he gets a Force Ghost at the end, right?
That's exactly so. That's his retirement plan right there.
Force ghosting. I hear it's lucrative.
No pun intended, I'm sure.
So, I mean, with mine, it's pretty straightforward here. And this is courageous on multiple levels. One, it's courageous, especially in the 90s, to change an entire lifestyle to appease your son and to welcome another family in. And in current times, to actually face another family with opposing political views. Right now, sitting down at a dinner table talking politics, that's one thing. Robin Williams and Armand Goldman had to change their entire lifestyle, their entire home to put on an act in hopes that their son can find happiness and normality in his eyes. So to me, that is the most courageous thing from a father is to change oneself in terms of happiness of his loved ones, just to put on an homage of a charade for a night, just to have that happiness and guarantee that happiness for a family member. And during this, it's also courageous to introduce an ex-wife into the mix, binding ties. So throughout the movie, we see signs of this courage from Robin Williams. And going back to my point in the beginning of being the rock of the family, we see multiple examples of this throughout the entire runtime. So to me, in a subtle level, even though it's not a space opera, which I love Josh's point, but this is one, and you touched on it on the Talking Smack podcast, where I don't really like my hand being held during stories. And this one really does prove some points of that courage of not multiple characters, but a single character really bringing in this family together and an external conflict into this family. So to me, that's courageous by itself.
I mean, you have a good point there, because when I was younger, I was totally on Team Son. And then you get older and you have kids, and I'm like, oh my God, like that's a lot to ask. Like a 20-year-old kid who wants to marry this girl, and you're asking your dad to do this. That is a lot to ask. And it makes me wonder, I'm like, would I even do that? Yeah, I probably would. But the fact that I'm even second guessing it just goes to show how courageous that actually is for him. And that's a gay couple, right? There's a lot more intricacies to that. It maybe not as intricate back then it is now, because now we have social media and it would be a different kind of aftermath, but for when that movie came out, I think it makes a lot of sense. And yeah, the courageous aspect and how it's played so well. Like Robin Williams plays that so well, and we can't, forget that Nathan Lane is also just the heart of that movie as well too, coming in and being the mother when she has to. So yeah, 100% courageous parents all in all with that one.
100%. And don't forget the conflict between the Gene Hackman, Senator Keeney act and just that overdone Republican montage. These two really come together without any real harsh conflict or what we would see today, but they actually try to understand. And it's about not necessarily conflict, but understanding between two families. And we do get a great ending result of the conflict coming to a resolve and showing that nice, sweet kiss at the end of resolving and proving the point of being courageous.
Great ending. One of my favorite endings of the 90s. Great comedy ending for sure. Okay, so for me, Furious Styles, this one is it's a different kind of courage, because it's the courage to be more of a father and less of a friend, right? Like the fact that this is lower income housing in Compton, in the hood. The son was mostly raised by his mother, but then she's trying to get a career. So he essentially learns how to be a man from his father. And in that neighborhood, it's just a different kind of parenting of like how not to let your son get swept up in the gangs and crime and drug deals and all that stuff like that. So he had to teach him how to be a man before he could really take that father role and son role. So that is why towards the end of the movie, when tragedies happen, it's actually his opportunity to show his paternal side and the heart and the warmth that he's been wanting to show his son his entire life, but never really could, because he was doing everything he could to keep him off the streets. And peppered into that mix is all of this those great like soliloquies that he gives of gentrification and the collapse of the neighborhood and black-owned real estate and businesses, and the police aren't your friends, they're actually your enemies. Like if you don't live in that area, like none of us lived in those neighborhoods growing up. Well, I don't know, maybe Wilson did in Miami, but we really are just having to listen to what Furious's message is to really understand it from a father's perspective and not just the gangbanger's perspective. And that's why I've always liked him, because he's kind of like the narrator of why the world is the way it is in this film and what we see it does to the youth in that film, which to this very day, almost 40 years later, that movie scares the hell out of me, and it makes me just feel so fortunate that I'm not raised in that environment.
I think it was a great pick because this is one I think the hardest thing with social media and parents today is where is that line of best friend and parenting? I think we all can relate growing up where we always dreamed about being that parent that's just well liked and we want to be that best friend to our kid and we want to be contradicting to the parents at times that how we were raised. So, I mean, just the pivotal scene of him giving the sex talk to his son while they're out on the water. And it's a great moment because this one, I think, isn't necessarily the discipline piece of it. Vera Stiles has a great fine line between discipline and best friend, where it's just a conversation. And I think that's the most courageous thing is being vulnerable and being okay with conversations like the sex talk and being okay with what your child is telling you and not being okay with the language on how he's communicating. So to me, when you say courageous, that scene stands out to me because of his reaction of responding to his son on how he's responding to what happens during sex. So to me, that is a great, courageous moment in that movie.
Okay, so I'm curious with both of you. How old are your children?
My oldest is 14.
So my oldest daughter is 13.
Have you had the talk?
I have, yes. Yes.
I mean, my son is special needs, so I'm not sure he would understand the talk if I gave it to him. But if and when that time comes where he's starting to figure out things and what they do, then I will definitely have that talk in the most simplified way I can give it to him that he'll understand.
My goal, talking about how our parents did it with us, my goal was just not to do it the way my dad did it, which is to just buy me a set of encyclopedias.
Wait, you had a talk?
Special encyclopedias, like it was called the Life Cycle Encyclopedias, 13 volumes, and volume 12 was my favorite for reasons, and that was his version of the talk.
God. My version of the talk is me finding a hustler on the side of the road on the way back from school. That was my talk.
Yeah, and mine was just seeing enough stuff on HBO where I finally had to have my mom explain to me why people were rubbing their pelvises together. So we all have we've all got different talks.
Very good. Very good.
All right, so next category, most responsible father figure. So responsible, in my opinion, is, how are they handling their fatherly duties? Are they making sure that their kids are making the right decisions, or at least the best decisions in their opinions, maybe not society's opinions? And what is their overall, responsibility of the household and family look like? Who's got it the most together? So, according to the poll, Furious Style comes in at 36%, Darth Vader comes in at 45%, and Armand Goldman comes in at 18%. Wilson, 45% high. Do you think that's just fanboys, or do you wish to explain the responsibility factor?
I think of all the three, he certainly had the most business responsibility. He was in charge of keeping an empire in order. So now, did he carry that through to the home life? Well, see, he didn't have that chance. I would argue that given the chance that, he got the kids in the settlement, let's say, I'm sure that he would have taken care of all of their needs, set them up, finest education. And again, we do see that when he discovers his son again, he tries his damnedest to get his son to join him, and he wants to mentor him, which I think is very responsible. And again, in the end, and I might keep coming back to this depending on what the category is, he pays the ultimate sacrifice. He gives his life so that his son can continue on.
Henson.
This one I can kind of see the low score on because there's not a lot of evidence to back up responsibility, even though, yes, there's evidence showing that he was a single father to an extent with Nathan Lane helping. But there isn't a lot of backstory to where the mother was, right? We don't know a lot of what happened with that relationship, but I think the biggest piece of it is he's a business owner, but a nightclub business owner. So To me, I don't really see a lot of evidence to back up responsibility other than being there for his son 100%. And that's an important one. And introducing his son to just overall the love of loving everybody. So to me, that is the biggest thing that stands out in this movie is showing the example of just what love is universally. So if I had to pick something, I'm okay with the two examples. Furious Styles, I think, would stand up a little bit higher than mine. Darth Vader, I think Josh did a great job proving that. But I'm okay losing this category because I think there's a lot more examples in yours and Josh's characters than mine, to be perfectly honest.
I mean, granted, the kid's 20 years old and in college already for 2 years, so who knows? Maybe he was super responsible when he was under that roof, and then now the kid's gone. It's like, all right, you go be a man. I'm going to make sure that our dreams come true with this nightclub, So,
100%.
yeah, I'm not going to say irresponsible,
Sure.
but I can see the difference in values of responsibility. For me, Furious Styles, I think.
Well, but here's the thing, though. I wouldn't. Now, let me interrupt here, and I just don't give up too quickly on that, Justin, because I always look at the relationship between parent and kid, and I didn't see really any evidence of resentment on Val's part. I just saw a really healthy, loving, well-formed relationship, and to me, that speaks volumes. You almost don't need to see anything else because you look at that and you say, "Wow, this guy did the right things in raising this
Yeah,
kid."
and I think you make a great point, Josh, because I think I have my movie helmet on where I'm looking at the story and not necessarily the depth. Because at the end of the day, when you look at the relationship between father, son, or parents and son, it's going to be the outcome of how the child is raised. So I think that's a valid point. I think it's a good argument because at the end of the day, it's a great kid, especially in contrast to the daughter, where now that you bring it up, where we see early scenes of her lying to her parents, trying to cover up
Right.
who these parents are. And Val is completely open and honest with Robin Williams and Nathan Lane. And I think, you know what, that's a great point. I think that's very valid. So at the end of the day, it's how the child turns out and what a great kid Val is.
And I've seen plenty of relationships between exes that didn't look as respectful and easy as the relationship that he had with his
True.
ex. So kudos for that as well.
And the fact that, like, we didn't even talk about this, that essentially Vader is a widower, my dad is a single dad, and technically Val does have two parents. He's got Albie in the mix too, and he's most far removed from his biological mother. In fact, he's never met her. So yeah, it's three very different dynamics where we're working with, so those responsibilities would be different in each situation. So to my point with Furious Styles, the fact that you can tell at the very beginning of the movie that he respected his mother's wishes of just kind of stepping back, being the weekend dad, just to keep the status quo. I think there's a lot of single dads out there that know that. I kind of had to go through something similar, except mine was a little bit more rigid. But when it was time for him to take on the main parenting role of the son and making sure he has a solid financial future, he's a loan officer for mortgage business in Compton, getting African American people to be able to buy their own homes. Like, that's his goal, is to keep the property and the residential areas within the ethnicity because of all the things that he was talking about of gentrification. So the responsibilities, I think, go beyond just what he's doing as a parent. I think he's got that on lockdown. He's expanded his responsibilities to his people, his neighborhood, his ethnicities, his beliefs, and his struggle to keep the neighborhood from being taken away by the city and really falling victim to all the crime that's happening, which in his opinion is orchestrated by, higher levels of government, which, I don't know, back in the day that always kind of felt like, oh, that's kind of conspiracy talk. But now we live in a world where we see just billionaires buying houses all over the world and just people renting forever. It's like, oh, no, this was something that happened then, and we're just seeing it in a bigger frame now. So yeah, the responsibility lies thick with Furious, in my opinion.
Well, kind of even taking into what we were just talking about, we get to that pivotal moment at the end where we have Cuba Gooding Jr. Pull out his gun to seek revenge.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where Furious really steps in and says, that's not, the death of Ricky isn't my problem. It's their problem. You're my son. You're
Right.
my problem. And this is where we're at the crossroads where we really look at fears to see we have to course correct, and seeing how emotion can really take hold of this 18, 19-year-old guy when it comes to losing a friend. And this is where, did we do enough to raise this child to the point where he's at this emotional state? But at the same time, the parenting never stops. So the responsibility that he feels, he's still a young kid and he still has a lot to learn. And this is where he steps in and guides him in the right direction. So I think that's a great scene to really show the responsibility of a parent, that the parenting, even though they think they're an adult, and emotionally, you have to step in even when they're 20 to 30 to 40 years old at some point.
Agreed. Okay, on to the next. We're going to get a little bit more silly now. So for most fashionable dad, Furious Styles comes in at 10%, Darth Vader at 30%, and Armand Goldman, not surprisingly, at a whopping 60%. Wilson?
Listen, I shouldn't even have to argue this. The fact that Darth Vader's outfit, his robes, are fashioned after old samurai outfits, to me, I should have to say nothing else. I mean, he's got the cape. Listen, everything looks better with the cape. He's got the fashionable, sleek, and slimming helmet. He's got the inner robes that go under his belt. I mean, come on. He's even got a little crotch door, for easy access, which I appreciate. There's the knee-high boots. I mean, come on. I'm getting a little excited just thinking about it right now. So no, come on now. And black is the ultimate statement color right there.
There is something you have to respect about having like your social uniform, right? I mean, Steve Jobs, mock turtleneck jeans and New Balance sneakers for like 30 years. It's the same kind of concept. There's something about it that's powerful. There's something about it that screams leadership and ownership and consistency. So while it seems to me a little bit cliche because he wears the same thing every day, I get it. So I kind of like that one. How about Armand Goldman?
Well, here's the thing. If clothes is going to be one piece of it, that's going to kind of set the foundation of fashion. But it's how you carry it. It's your confidence on how you present it. I can walk out in public with boots and fur, and you know what? I'm not going to be confident about it. I'm not going to pull it off, and I'll be unfashionable. But Robin Williams here, in a scene where he's just sporting a tank top with his chest hair and his back hair flowing through the wind, to me, that's fashionable because he's comfortable with what he's doing, what he's wearing, and he is perfectly okay with that. And what I love about this movie is when we get him in the boring suit and tie, that's when he becomes uncomfortable. It's boring attire, and he knows it. He wants the clothing to match his personality, and that's where the fashion statement comes in, is being yourself and really wearing what feels good on you when it comes to just flaunting your personality. So to me, that's what fashion is when it comes to what you're wearing. I can buy a $200 shirt, and you know what? It's not going to be fashionable to me because I'm not going to feel good about it.
I mean, in 1996, I was wearing Stussy shirts and Jinko jeans, and I just thought that, his outfit was just so flamboyant and flowy. Now at 43, I don't live in Florida like Wilson does. I can understand the desire for linen pants that are just free flowing and breathable, but I would wear every single outfit that Armand wears in that movie now. In fact, I kind of want to go update my wardrobe as we speak.
Oh, I'm more of an Agador Spartacus kind of dresser, so what can I say?
You never wear shoes.
Not if I can help it.
Awesome. I actually did not vote for my guy on this one because I was going to be 100% honest with my opinions. I voted for Armand Goldman. When it comes to fashion, the dude had it. I think Furious's fashion sense goes back to his responsibility factor, and another category in the future is that he's living well within or even below his means to make sure that he is not, squandering money on things that aren't important to him or important to the people that he cares about. So there's some respectability in there, but that's not the category. The category was fashion, and Armand Goldman won it for me. Which takes us to our next category. Most financially responsible. So we have Furious Styles at 20%, Darth Vader at 40%, and splitting that with him is Armand Goldman at 40%. Wilson, fiscal responsibility.
Well, we never really saw his bank account. We never saw him, we don't know how much dude made, right? So we kind of have to just conjecture that he was paid a lot of money. He's basically the number two guy, right? The vice president, with the force choke ability.
Yeah.
So we assume he had a lot of money. We know that he had a rockin' castle.
Over a volcano.
Well, yeah, or whatever, But beyond that, we don't see that he splashed out for anything else for himself. I think that his house, his escape, that was his one extravagance. Otherwise, you've said it. He didn't come in, every day with a different color cape, right? He wasn't,
Right.
he had his work uniform. I think that he pinched pennies, if anything. Like I said, he spent money on his house, but I think that's more just him taking care of his mental health, his mental well-being. I need a place to get away, right? Otherwise, I think these
It could also be like a Tony Soprano situation.
Well, I mean, well, sure, but you look at his even his quarters, on the Star Destroyer. I mean, it's very Spartan, except for his bathysphere, his chamber, whatever the hell that thing was called, and that was a medical device, right? So, dude, I think, like I said, pinch pennies. He had his little extravagance. Otherwise, I think he's extremely fiscally responsible.
He did pitch out some dough, though, so we could have the biggest hologram projector so we could conference call the Emperor. Everyone else has got like the little tiny one, and he's got like the big 200-inch screen.
Business
one.
Expense. It's a write-off.
It's a write-off. Oh, good point. Armand Goldman, Justin Henson.
So obviously he has a successful business. I mean, we see the younger Kennedys visiting his club, so it's always packed in the beginning. So he has enough money to transform his mansion, his house, into almost a cathedral Catholic church looking thing. So obviously he has money. He has help, if you want to call it help. That's clumsily throughout the movie. But so I don't think there's going to be any question here that he's responsible. We even have Nathan Lane that obviously learned some lessons during running this household, that she didn't want to buy filet mignon because it was too expensive, so she got a pork roast. So there's obviously rules in this household that's set to be fiscally responsible. And again, going to college and moving the son out of state or whatever it may be. So we see the examples of this throughout the entire movie. So I think he's fiscally responsible. And the only thing I would say wouldn't be is, again, transforming an entire house into a church-looking, boring household.
Right, but that was an act of love.
It was an act of love, yes. Worth it.
Plus, Florida real estate, I mean, Wilson knows this. To have a nightclub with a house attached with a pool in Miami Beach, South Beach.
Maybe at that time, a little bit more understandable. Now, absolutely not.
All right. This one pissed me off, but I get it. Oh, let me talk about Furious Styles really fast. Furious Styles, his financial responsibility, like I said, living within his means, underdressing, really putting like his time and effort into the public and his son and less for himself. You can see that they're not wanting for anything, but they're also not splurging on anything. So I think he's very financial responsibility, but also with financial responsibility also comes with a lack of fun and extravagance, which isn't as fun to talk about. So that's an easy conversation. I think he's responsible financially. Okay. Who's got the best dad jokes? I was disappointed by this one. Furious Styles, 0 votes, 0%, which means I didn't vote for him either. I voted for Darth Vader, who got 67% of the vote, and then Armand Goldman, 33%. I voted for Darth Vader because I knew that Wilson would, and I was just dying to hear if Wilson had any examples of Darth Vader dad jokes.
No, I don't. I don't. No, this was just me being loyal to my brand, friend.
I also think that even if he told a joke and it's terrible, people are still going to laugh because they don't want to get force choked.
Here's the thing, though. With that voice and that breathing, you're never going to have good comedic timing and delivery. Ain't going to happen.
This one should be a no-brainer because, again, you have classic Robin Williams on it, and all the jokes in here almost pull him back a little bit from the characters he's used to, but there are so many good Robin Williams one-liners in this to really stand out. I mean, one of them is like, it's like riding a psychotic horse towards a burning stable. Any interaction with Nathan Lane, there's a good banter between them. So it's hard to pick just a couple good one-liners from the Birdcage because there's just so many. But here's the thing: is they're all situational. They're all based on conversation. So I wouldn't say it was just one solid Robin Williams effort to land a big dad joke. I think it's a setup where he just kind of finishes the joke, where he lands the conversational joke. So to me, I think he has some good one-liners in it, but I think it's because of the ensemble, not just Robin Williams, even though he's an extremely talented man in this performance.
I also think, though, the fact that it is Robin Williams, there are moments in any movie, including this one, where you can tell what is scripted and then you can tell what is him. And sometimes that goes against the character that he's trying to play. I think the worst example of that is Good Will Hunting, where he is amazing and he got an Oscar for it. But there are moments where you can see that he is no longer that character. He's doing his Robin Williams shtick. Some people like it, some people don't. I'm fine with it because he's entertaining and funny. But I think that's a division of like, at what point is he no longer Armand Goldman and he's doing Robin Williams? And are you okay with that transition?
100% all in, no matter what Robin Williams does with his performance. So I'm a fan.
Yeah, and I think that he actually inhabited that character of Armand exceptionally well because the humor, I feel like, was situational and was appropriate, and this is who this guy would be.
How about this, guys? Best self-care routine. So, Furious Styles, 0%. I did not vote for my guy on that one. Darth Vader, 67%, and Armand Goldman with 33%.
He had to invest in self-care. Look, the guy's had a rough life. What can I say? He understands how important it is to take care of yourself. Dude needs a breathing apparatus. Done. He understands.
A lot of scheduled maintenance that you have to, you can't just let the engine light clock on forever on that
exactly
one. You have to
so.
take care of it.
I never even listen. This is how well he kept himself in shape, right? And he took care of his body. He attended to his needs. When he's fighting, his breathing steady, heart rate probably never even elevated. He definitely was the best that he could be.
Justin Henson, Armand Goldman with that 33%.
I'm actually kind of surprised at that 33% because my vote would have been for Vader because, drinking, smoking, staying out late. It's not the best self-care routine. We never see Robin Williams shower. We never see any one scene. Well, I don't know if we want to, but we even see one scene where he wakes up in the morning and he looks like hell. So totally hungover. So to me, it's a movie and a character that really has to deal with a lot of the chaos and stress by nicotine and alcohol, which more power to him, but definitely not a self-care example throughout this entire movie, especially when he goes and chugs that bottle of champagne during all the chaos of how to maintain and deal with all this stress. So funny, but not self-care responsible.
There's definitely a moment in the movie that really proves that, and that is they are in the kitchen and he is literally just sitting, drinking coffee and reading newspaper on a little elliptical exercise bike that's got laundry hanging off it. No one's used that thing in years except to sit and drink coffee on it. So I think that is the clue that he is more about the aesthetic part rather than the self-care and personal wellness part.
100%.
Okay, so here's one that my guy won. So who makes the best chili? Furious Styles comes in at 67%, Darth Vader at 17%, and Armand Goldman at 17%. I was saying to Wilson offline, that's a little off-putting to me. It's okay, so we're just going to assume that Lawrence Fishburne makes the best chili, but I guess they don't make chili in a galaxy far, far away, and I don't know about Armand Goldman's tastes, but let's discuss. And yes, I agree. Furious Styles makes the best chili.
I would probably give this to you because I don't know that Darth Vader actually eats. And never trust a chef who does not taste their own food.
This is true.
Yeah, I'm going to Furious Styles on this one because, again, in this movie, you don't really see Robin Williams cook. So he has hired help. So there's no example that's going to say he's going to make the best chili. To me, I'm a little upset that I tied with Vader on it because I think I should go a little bit ahead of Vader with it, with his space chili. But I think Furious Styles should take the cake on this one, just at a default, because there's no real examples from our characters.
I'm guessing that in Birdcage that it's Albie that does most of the cooking because Agador doesn't. Obviously, as we can tell, he knows how to make sweet and sour peasant stew. But yeah, since Albie's not in the picture during that moment, it would make sense why, no one's making the chili. So I guess Albie makes the chili. Okay, now, who is the best Little League coach? Furious Styles comes in at 80%, Darth Vader at 20%, and Armand Goldman at 0%. I mean, I'd kind of want to see like a Bad News Bears situation with these three dads going against each other. And Furious Styles, yeah, this guy knows how to handle kids. He knows how to motivate them. He knows how to get them on the field. And it's the classic underdog story. The boys from the hood, that could be their team name, would definitely come out on top.
I feel like Darth Vader would be one of these dictatorial gas bag coaches who would probably do very well in year one, and then his shtick starts to get really, really old. I mean, I think the force choke would work the first couple times you do it. Then parents are getting pissed, and year two, the players start to tune him out. So I think that short term, fear is always an effective motivational tool. You just can't sustain that over seasons.
I also think that he would probably take out the younglings, as he's been known to do, and replace them with the Roger droids from the first one.
Clones. He'd replace them with clones. This is what he did.
Oh, there we go. Armand Goldman, 0%. I mean, you didn't even vote for him.
Yeah. That was kind of hard. I mean, if I can picture like if Nathan Lane had that really motherly thing going, and
Albie's making the orange slices for everybody.
Yeah. Robin Williams, I can picture there with like a glass of wine and a cigarette, just kind of pointing. So Darth Vader, I think it makes sense. I mean, you have a lot of other motivational things to get those players going, and Furious, of course, has that coach mentality. But Armand Goldman, absolutely not. Even he gets like a Billy Bob Thornton or Walter Matthau Bad News Bear vibe to some extent.
I see that.
So yeah, I wouldn't even vote for him.
Like, I'd want to see a movie where it was like Furious Styles Little League coaching, and the rival coach was Samuel L. Jackson. Sign me up. I'd watch that movie tomorrow. Okay. Which dad always picks the check up at dinner? Furious Styles, Darth Vader, Armand Goldman, 33% across the board.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that Vader is in the habit of paying for things.
Right. And even if he was, it would be like, you don't need to see my credit card kind of business.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Ooh, great commercial tie-in, by the way. They totally screwed the pooch on that. That would have been great.
The Vader card, the Vader Black Visa card.
That's right.
Oh
that's
my
right.
God.
You don't have to pay for anything.
Yeah, Goldman.
Yeah. Goldman, no question. I mean, he has that mentality of being kind of the guy at the house, the one with the money. He wants to take care of everybody. So the only thing that would be in question is that he has the Kennedys in the beginning. Instead of comping their bill, comp some coffee. So he's particular on where he spends his money when it comes to paying for the bill. But at the same time, when it comes to the topic at hand of the family, friends, and just being impressive, I think I would totally agree with it. Vader, I think he would just charge the Empire on, and I still think we should have a bigger conversation on auditing this man on what he spends his money on.
Well, I mean, with Goldman, if it had been Ted Kennedy, he would have picked up the check, but it was just the younger one. So, yeah.
He would have. Yeah. Coffee for the young Kennedys. Get it. And I can't disagree. So, but yeah, I think Armand Goldman gives that wants to impress piece of it, but at the same time, he has that subtle, he wants to do it out of genuinely doing it.
I think with Furious Styles, he would definitely pick up the check, but he's also like only reserving those for special occasions, right? Like they're not going out to eat every week. He's financially responsible, but he is the dad, he is the provider, and he would definitely want to show that courtesy to his kids or to the people he's with. I didn't put it in here because, again, these are dads. Some of them are relationships, some are single dads, but I also see Furious Styles as being a very charming first date and a very, what's the best word? Chivalrous first date. So that's kind of the vibe I'm going with that.
Well, I don't know. Towards the end scene where he meets his baby's mama, she picks up the check. So that would be my only disagree with it. And he didn't really argue with it.
Yeah, because he's paying her alimony.
True.
All right. This is a fun one. Which dad puts up the best Christmas light display? Furious Styles at 0% votes, which means I didn't vote for him. Darth Vader at 75% and Armand Goldman at 25%. Wilson, yeah, lightsabers. The dude can put on a light show. Let's just put it that way.
Dude is a light show.
He is.
Not only lightsabers.
He's got Christmas lights on his gear.
He's got that, the nice greens and reds, and he's got the entire fleet at his disposal to light up the sky with torpedoes and whatnots and what have yous. And, we've seen the Death Star like a giant, beautiful crystal in the sky. So, no, that's
right.
easy. That's easy. And
absolutely.
I don't think that Armand and his family celebrate Christmas. So then there's that.
I don't even think it's that. I think this one is an unfair. I'm going to go on the defense here because year round he has neon lights. You can't even see any Christmas lights. So you can put it up, but these are set in stone. You can go into detail on what kind of neon lights these are. You can't change the color of them. They're not color changing. This is the 90s. So there's no way you would be able to tell. So it's an unfair question. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think that Armand Goldman is like a secular Jew. Like they don't really like celebrate any of their stuff. That's why they're eating pork roast for dinner. But come on, man. You know that Heath chose an amazing Christmas time special. They probably have just an all-out production of, Holiday Inn favorites and Christmas time favorites, and there's probably a beautiful light show on the inside. So if you want to tie that in with that, I bet he puts on a great Christmas pageant for his club. It doesn't necessarily reflect what would be outside.
Well, I think the Star Wars Christmas special speaks for itself, so it sucked. So
who has the best liquor cabinet? Furious Styles was dragging, and then last minute someone voted. It might have been me. So it did put them in a three-way tie of 33% across the board. Furious Styles, Darth Vader, Armand Goldman, 33% of who's got the best liquor cabinet. I'm amazed that Armand didn't just get that 100%, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's alcohol every 10 minutes in the movie. So obviously there's, but at the same time, I can kind of see it because it's only usually a certain type. It's usually wine, champagne. Once in a while, you'll see Gene Hackman ask for a scotch. So we don't get a huge variety of it. But at the same time, if this was who has the most alcohol, absolutely, that would take the cake. But yeah, that one does surprise me a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a feeling that one of the buttons on Darth Vader's control panel is like, the cocktail button where he just receives an infusion. And you said that you believe that these hyperbaric chambers, as you call them, is full of Bacta. Don't think so. I think it's gin.
It's aviator gin.
It is the best that the Empire can produce.
We don't see Furious Styles drinking, and he's like very weary about substances along his son, like around his son and friends. I would think that he probably has a nice scotch or maybe like a nice assortment of beers, but locked and hidden for his own personal enjoyment and not to be tempted for his son and his friends. So I voted for him because I bet there's some good stuff in there, but he's not one to show it off. Now, we're coming towards the end here. We got 2 more categories left. Which dad has the worst dad breath? Now, I had to throw this in there because I think some of these weighed a little unfairly in the positive for some. So we had to put one in there to kind of pull it back and try and even the playing field, because dad breath is something that dads will all eventually deal with and is the butt of a lot of dad jokes. And so Furious Styles came in at 17%, Darth Vader at a whopping 83%, and Armand Goldman 0%. No one voted that Armand Goldman's got bad dad breath. I think Furious Styles probably lets the day get away from him. He might enjoy a cigarette or a cigar, when he's like in the car between selling loans and things like that. But the self-care routine, I don't see him really focusing on that dentally. But Darth Vader, even though he's got that back to tank, he is kind of a walking corpse.
Dude, his breath at best smells like necrotic flesh. So, I mean, that's just a thing.
It just goes with the territory. But on the bright side of that, he does have a mask and filtration system that would save the people around him from it. So he's just kind of walking in his own dad breath all day. But without that mask, I would be very, very weary of getting anywhere close to that mouth.
It's interesting to me that maybe Darth Vader isn't evil after all. Maybe it's just that, like, he's wandering around. The inside of that suit must smell like death.
It's true. So we're going to finish off our dad battle with the very last category, which is which dad gives the best bear hugs. Furious Style comes in at 0%, not surprising. Darth Vader at 43% and Armand Goldman at 57% for bear hugs. Now, I voted for Armand Goldman, though technically he's not a bear. I think he's considered an otter in that particular world. So it'd be an otter hug, but the thought of the bear hug is there. It's the thought that counts. Wilson, Darth Vader, is he really hugging or is he doing force hugs?
I mean, that's the beauty of it all, is that he has the ability to hug from across the room.
Right?
That's lovely and wonderful. He could probably hug like from the ship to the planet. He's pretty powerful. So I'm all in for my boy's ability to deliver the long distance love.
It's like perfect for the pandemic too. You get this nice, strong, forceful hug, but you can be like 6 feet away, social distancing.
Absolutely. And you're always in daddy's strong arms.
Armand Goldman, I mean, your boy won this one, Henson.
Yeah, and I said it from the beginning, this is the type of dad that you really just want to reach through the screen and hug. I mean, right from the beginning scenes where he's finding out the news that his son's getting married, and he tries to do that bluff of, don't talk to me again, you walk out, it's over. And it was a complete bluff, and then he grabs his son and just gives him a good hug. So everything that Robin Williams does in this is almost an awe moment. Mm-hmm. He can try and be just a super strong father figure and try and pull on this charade of being the strict dad, but it always comes back as being utter sweetness because his love overpowers the hard, abrupt father-like figure to just really have that likability. And again, it's Robin Williams. You naturally just like him. You're attracted to the screen of just pure likability. But as a dad, it's another level. And to Josh's point earlier, is he plays the character brilliantly. He embraces this, and that's his inner dad coming out, because I think at this point, his Zelda, his daughter, was probably around 6 or 7. I don't know the exact age, but this is this role that he was embracing, being a dad. And it's just the most adorable thing that you can see in a movie that never will get old.
No, I agree with that. I mean, I want a bear hug from Robin Williams. Like, not even Armand, just Robin Williams. Just give me a bear hug, right? No, I agree 100% with that. Okay, so that brings our final tally, our final percentages for this dad battle that we had based on audience polls. So Furious Styles came in last place with 24.7% of the total votes. Armand Goldman came in second place with 26.4%. And Darth Vader led the pack with 45.6% of the dad battle votes. Now, does that really translate into the best dad? I mean, we were talking about favorite dads here, but based on these categories, based on the listeners and the viewers and the voters, Darth Vader wins it. So well done, Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, it was all me. Darth Vader, I think he had the greatest fall. He was the most deeply flawed of the three, which made his redemption arc that much more amazing. And that's why I think, again, he had love and concern for his family, pushed him to make all these wrong decisions. I wouldn't say pushed him, but caused him to. And at the end, that's also the reason why he showed himself to be a great dad.
And iconic. I mean, more people know about Darth Vader than they do my dad or Justin's dad, based on just the ratings of the movies that our dads are in. But also, like, it is one of like the most timeless stories of father redemption. And yeah, you can honestly say that maybe the original trilogy was following the journey of Luke Skywalker, but essentially the entire saga really is based around Anakin / Darth Vader. Even the crappy post sequels still featured a lot of Skywalker lineage, and that's what makes it timeless. So yeah, I love it. I love this conversation. Does anyone have any closing statements for their dads, or maybe something that got left out of the conversations?
No, I think the dads that we picked, I think they're brilliant. And what I really love about movie dads is that they don't shy away from flaws. And just like any parent, we're going to have flaws. And it's kind of to the winner of Darth Vader, it's the redemption piece of it, of recognizing the flaws and how we overcome to, in behalf of our children, to actually raise them. Furious shows that strength of a father. Robin Williams shows that sweetness and that love. And Darth Vader shows that flaw to redemption. So I think holistically with this trio of dads, it just sends combined a great message to not just movie dads, but to people that kind of watch these movies and take something away.
Wilson?
I have a question. So out of these three, which one do you resonate the most with? Which one are you?
That's a really, really good question. I mean, honestly, just based off of my lifestyle and my creativity, I kind of resonate most with Armand Goldman, just because that's kind of like the dad that I am. But my dad was definitely more of the Furious Styles type of aesthetic. It was a very real world, realistic, no one's going to do any favors for you. You have to earn stuff on your own kind of mentality, which I appreciated and I kind of envy in my fatherhood now. But I feel like I just don't have the emotional and physical prowess to project that kind of fatherhood. So I don't really identify it, but I respect it because it is the way I was kind of raised, if that makes sense.
I would have to say Armand, because like Antonio, I'm a big open and honest conversational guy, especially when it comes to work and home. I think conversation is a big piece to earn that honesty. And I see that a lot with Robin Williams' portrayal with Armand. I think I yelled at my daughter once, and I think she told me it was like finding out there was no Santa Claus at one point. I think it just resonates, that conversation. And I know me and Antonio have had conversations. Dialogue is huge in movies. I'm huge in dialogue when it comes to just addressing issues and conflict at home and opening up that conversation with my daughter, to have that safety of talking to dad if something needs to be talked about. So, and that's what Armand really resonates throughout this entire movie, and it's just relatable during the entire viewing, which makes this movie super special for me.
You've also got a lot of musical theater memorabilia on your back wall, so that also kind of
You had to call that out. Perfect.
If it wasn't me, it might have been Wilson. I don't know. I had to get the jump on it.
What about you, Josh?
I would say Armand, but not necessarily for the reasons that you all have said. I am a very emotional person, but also while he means well and while he does foster honest conversations in his family, he's also a bit of a mess. He's also all over the place. And that's the part of Armand that I resonate with. I'm not strict, right? So I can't really I can't really say that I resonate too much with Fury Styles. And I have all of my limbs, so we're going to take Darth Vader out of the conversation. But I definitely resonate with the love, but the mess that Armand is.
I feel that's like a very modern day complication that us dads have is like, I keep hearing all these, red pill masculine guys on TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that saying we have to be more like, guys in the 30s and the 40s and farmers of the 1800s. Like, well, technology and social construction has kind of ridded us of that necessity to be those guys. Like, we're not farmers. We're not raising cattle. We're not working the mines. Like, it's a different kind of mentality, and we're just doing the best we can with the way that we've been raised and with the social environments and constructions that we exist in. And if people want to call us soft, they can call us whatever the fuck they want. I know that I'm a good dad, and I see how good of dads you guys are when you're talking about your kids in your podcasts and when we are like saying what we did over the weekend with our families. To me, that's what really matters. And I think that is the one thing that Armand has over the other two dads is the fact that there are really, really good dads of what they're trying to do for their family, but being available and consistent and there for the family is also a big piece that I think gets looked over because a lot of us don't have time to do that anymore. So making the time is definitely one of the biggest things that we can do.
I think that's a great point because even when we're having these open conversations with the kids, and again, you're 100% right. Discipline from the 40s, 50s doesn't work. It just, with social media now, it just shuts down. There's more to hide, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So when we have these open conversations, there's some things that are big topics. And I think the best example for Ahmad is just to chug a bottle of alcohol once you're done with it and call it a day. So I think with a lot of these conversation pieces is we have to mentally be that bulletproof vest for the kids, take in all the information, and then just do it the Armand way, light up a cigarette, and when everybody's in bed, have a nice glass of scotch.
And scream.
And scream.
Love it.
Amen.
Gentlemen, I absolutely loved this conversation. I loved everything leading up to it. I loved how frustrated I got at some of the poll results day by day as I'm like, how are you guys voting for this guy? But it's fun. And we got to learn more about each other and why we picked the dads that we picked. And I think it's going to be a great Father's Day episode. And I just loved having this little father huddle.
Happy Father's Day to you both.
Happy Father's Day, fellas.
So as we close this episode up, Wilson, do you want to throw out your plugs and your shows and where people can find you and what they can be expecting in the next couple weeks?
You can find me, just search Super Familiar with the Wilsons, the podcast that I do with my lovely wife, Amanda, and give us a listen. That's the only podcast that I will. Well, that's not true. I talked about Aging Gayfully. You can listen to that as well by going to aginggayfully.com or searching that out for on the socials and your streamings. And I'm going to put in a quick plug on June 10th, my friends. I got a song dropping on Spotify and Apple Music, so look for my artist name, which there's too many Josh Wilsons out there, so my artist name will be Familiar Wilson. There you go.
Amazing musician, this guy, super talented, who does the songs for a lot of our podcasting friends' shows, and you're just really, really great at it. And you've played some of your stuff on my podcast during the Christmas time, so yes, definitely check that out.
So again, other than Back to the Balcony, you can check me out anywhere you listen to podcasts at The Movie Wire, and follow me on any of the socials at Movie Wire Show. Got the normal coming up. We got a documentary series special coming up in the next couple of weeks that should be fantastic. Other than that, make sure you hit follow or subscribe.
Absolutely. And you can find the links to both of their shows and links to their social medias in the show notes of this episode, but also at thecultworthy.com in the Cultworthy Partners page, where all of my friends and contributors and guests have added to the show. Their links are in there. Once again, guys, this was a fantastic conversation. I can't wait to do this again next year. Everyone, we'll see you next week.
You fuckers are so professional sounding, god damn it.